into June on the Belleville Sens podcast, and we roll into episode number 26 this week on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. David Foote and Brock Ormond here with you as always. Thanks for tuning in, and hope you are staying cool as the temperatures start to rise. Things not yet quite heating up on the roster front for the Senators organization. About a month here until free agency opens, and we'll really start to get an idea of what next season's team will look like, but still lots to talk about. Some news up in Ottawa in terms of the coaching staff that we'll touch on. We will recap the East and West finals that are continuing on with the defending conference champions both off to hot starts. Coachella Valley and Milwaukee in the West, and Hershey and Cleveland in the East. And our next three exit interviews featuring some fan favorites this week. Boko Imama, Josh Currie, and Ryan MacKinnon. We'll hear from all of those players over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. Again, before we get going, please don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Toss us a 5-star rating and a review. We'd really appreciate that as season number 2 rolls into the summer here, Brock. And getting into kind of that slow time now where things have basically wrapped up in terms of your end-of-season work. And the focus is starting to shift to next season, and still a lot to do, but hey, we're gonna get through these interviews and try to bring a little bit of insight into what's happening during these slow months of the off season as well.
Yeah, a little bit of in between time, but that's all right. Just trying to kind of reflect a little bit. Still reflection time, really, even as the season ended almost a month ago now, and it feels like time's flown in a way too. It feels like we were just right here at CAA Arena with full house watching the Sens battle it out with teams like Toronto and Cleveland. So it's been interesting to kind of see the transition and who's back and who's not, and all the things that go on in an off season. So really looking forward to seeing or hearing some insight from guys like Boko Imama and Josh Currie, who in particular had 2 really good playoff runs for the Sens, and Ryan MacKinnon did a good job of pinching in as well to give himself an opportunity to succeed, and of course, as we talked about, one of the best teammates in that dressing room.
Yeah, was named Belleville's, or voted, I should say, as Belleville's Players' Choice Award winner this year. So we will chat with Ryan MacKinnon coming up a little bit later on. Let's start things off with a guy who became a very quick fan favorite here for the Belleville Senators in his first year in the Friendly City, his first year in the Ottawa organization, and that is Boko Imama, the veteran out of the Montreal area, 27 years old, had a really good year for Belleville, just 10 points over 53 games, but as we've talked about with Boko in the past, and as you'll hear from him coming up, it's, he's not here to produce points necessarily, but he can, and just having a guy like Boko Imama in your lineup really just completely changes the complexion and the look and feel of your hockey club, and that made a big impact for Belleville this year.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that does have a place in the lineup. Every time he got in there, he didn't get in as much in terms of the amount of games, but when he was in there, he was an absolute force, throwing hits and creating more space for his line mates to work creatively offensively. But that's not to say he didn't have offensive skills himself. He had a quick shot that he used to score his first playoff goal for the Sens, and he was quick around the net. He had a good touch for a guy that only had 10 points, but sometimes it's not about the offense you create. It's about what you do away from the puck, and when you're, chasing after guys and hitting guys. Boko Imama was outstanding on that front.
And I think this will be a theme really for this week's episode and the 3 guys we're talking to. All impactful players in their own way on the ice, but it's what these 3 specifically were able to do off the ice in that dressing room in terms of forging some chemistry and relationships. And these 3 guys probably deserve a lot of credit when it comes to that point that we've been making over the course of these interviews, that this was one of the tightest, if not the tightest, groups that a lot of these guys have played with, and it's players like Boko Imama, Josh Currie, and Ryan MacKinnon that helped to make that kind of atmosphere possible.
Yeah, and you heard the names too of guys when they were talking in other interviews, and that guys like Imama and Currie and Garrett Pilon and Hetherington and that. Those are types of guys that could build a cohesion and glue everybody together so that there was no fusions, there was no backbiting, there was no clicks, there was no nothing like that. And it's guys like that that really make a true team, because you can have 20 of the best players in the American Hockey League or any league on one team. Doesn't matter if you don't have the cohesion and the chemistry that needs to be forged right from the dressing room out.
Well, let's get to Boko Imama, and then we'll chat a bit more about what he has to say and his season as we continue on with our exit interviews following the 2023-24 AHL campaign. Here is Boko Imama on episode 26, season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. You became a fan favorite here pretty quickly this year, and I know that's kind of followed you around all of your stops, but how did you feel about your first year as a Senator and your first year here in Belleville?
No, it was great. Definitely made a lot of memories. Got along super well with the guys, and obviously on ice, I think we did a pretty good job. Towards the end here, you could feel the energy, the support of the city. And it was just great. It was a great first year.
Yeah, we talked earlier in the season about the differences between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. One of the things you told me is nobody wants to scrap here. That certainly changed throughout the course of the season. And, I feel like you've shown that your game is much more than that. But how important, I guess, is that part to this team, and how important was that kind of down the stretch to take on that role as the guy that you don't want to mess with on this team?
Yeah, no, obviously it's big. I take a lot of pride into that. There was a lot of work being done, along the years, to get to that point. But no, it's great. Like I said, take a lot of pride in that. And obviously, when you have a chance to do it and you get the recognition from your teammates, it's also a great feeling, something that comes pretty natural to me. And, yeah.
Yeah, and like I say, that was just one piece of what you brought to the greater puzzle of this team. You showed your skating, obviously your work ethic, handful of points in the playoffs as well. How nice was it to kind of be a part of that run, help this team accomplish something that never had been done before?
Yeah, no, it was great. Obviously, you want to bring more to the table, especially in bigger moments. So like you said, we talk about my toughness, what I was able to do. But, yeah, I also wanted to, showcase that I was more than that I can help the team, getting some energy, the forecheck, even defensively, playing good defensively. So trying to do everything that's right for the team. And obviously having the little success that we had in playoffs, it was a little cherry on top for sure.
Yeah. What was it like to be playing back in Canada again and only a few hours down the road from home, plus getting to go back there a bunch of times to play against Laval?
No, it was great. It was definitely a great experience. Obviously, I feel like in that division, especially here in Belleville, hockey is the main sport,
Yeah.
If you compare it to other places in the United States. And yeah, it was great. It was like playing at home. My family was here as much as it could. I saw them a lot this year, and whenever we're going in Laval, I just had a big crew coming down to support me. So no, it was very great.
Yeah. How did you find Belleville and the city and the Bay of Quinte community a little bit different than the places you played the last few years?
Yeah, it's a little different, but I definitely enjoyed it. There's the laid-back side of it. And actually in juniors, I played in small-town teams in juniors, so it's not something that I was not used to. So it was just like me getting back to some old routes, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot of the guys have been talking about how close this team was, how tight this group was. And maybe more so than other teams that they've played with. Did you kind of feel that way? And I guess why? What was it about this group that allowed you guys to gel so well?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's just the guys in the locker room. We had some very, very good guys in there, and having guys like that just gonna makes things easier. We're able to just get together and just push through whatever we're facing. And also it's our situation. We're playing out of Belleville. It's a smaller market team, so you have to come together to make something happen. So it was up to the players, and I'm happy we did a good job with that.
Yeah. What does the rest of the summer look like for you? Obviously, you'll head back home to the Montreal area and spend some time with family. What else do you get up to?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of weddings.
Okay.
So a lot of weddings. So I'll have to get to that. And mostly spending time with family, making sure I rest up too. Change of scenery a little bit. But other than that, is right back to trainings too, and getting ready for next season.
The weddings anywhere fun?
Yeah. Well, no, mostly in the Montreal or Quebec City area, but it would have been nice to have somewhere.
Something exotic.
Yeah, something down south or something would have been great too.
That's all right. There'll be good times either way. It was great watching you play this year. We really loved having you a part of the group. Thanks for all your time, and hope you have a great summer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Footy. You too.
Boko Imama, the forward for the Belleville Sens, enforcer extraordinaire, one of those typical enforcer types where you don't want to mess with him on the ice, but off the ice, that's just a good, genuine, nice guy. Always said hello in the mornings when you saw him, always was asking how you are and things like that, and just what a great piece to have on any team. And I know there's a lot of fans who would share the sentiment that we really hope that Boko Imama is back in the red, black, and white next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's one of those guys that, like you say, no matter whether you're winning, losing, or not really drawing, but winning or losing, you got a guy like Boko Imama that's always got a smile on his face and just loves to play hockey. He's one of those guys that just comes into the rink every day, taking on a brand new day as a challenge and as a privilege. And to play professional hockey is a privilege. And Boko Imama knew that. He understood it, and he went out there and made every shift his last pretty much. And the way he played was certainly obviously fit into the blue-collar style of action that the city of Belleville and the Bay of Quinte area has going on. So they take to guys like that, and that's why, we're hoping and everybody's hoping that Boko can make a return, and hopefully he'll be the type of guy that can lead the Sens back to where they were this year, perhaps even further.
He made such an impact playing with guys like Oscar Pettersson and Kyle Betts and others. And, if you ask any of the fans around town who their favorite Belleville Senator was this season, that was probably the guy, Boko Imama. He wore an A as well for a handful of games for Belleville throughout the course of the season. Our next guest after the break wore an A for a whole lot of games for Belleville this season. Josh Currie will be our next guest as episode 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast continues.
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
This is the Belleville Sens podcast, Season 2, Episode 26. It is June. The offseason has barely begun, but we're already looking ahead to next season. If you're in kind of the same mindset and want to try to get your hands on some tickets ahead of 2024-25, head over to BellevilleSens.com or fire an email off to tickets@BellevilleSens.com. You can get all the details on season seat memberships for the upcoming season and flex packs, and you can even put a group deposit down to bring your group out to one of our 6 guaranteed dates that were announced this week. As the full schedule will come out in July, but we do have a handful of dates we can confirm for home games here at CAA Arena, and that includes the home opener presented by CAA, which will be on Saturday, October 19th. And then basically a game a month has been confirmed from there. Saturday, November 9th, Saturday, December 14th, Friday, January 10th, the Family Day Monday again on February 17th of 2025, and then March 15th of 2025. Those are the guaranteed dates. Again, you can head to BellevilleSens.com to put a deposit down to lock in a group experience or get more info on season tickets, flex packs, business elite memberships, and more. Alex Pickford and the ticket team are ready and waiting to help you out to get you set for next season. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. We're continuing on with our exit interviews, and Josh Currie is our feature subject for this segment. The first-year Senator and longtime pro came back to North America after a couple of okay seasons in Europe, Brock, but comes back here to Belleville and eclipses his AHL numbers from his last season in the league, which was 2020-21. Not a career year by any means for Josh Currie, but a really impactful one for the Belleville Senators as, again, we go back to this list of veteran players that were brought in to help lead this team and that did just that this year.
Yeah, and you could tell that that Currie was a guy that could lead the team to high hopes, and 6 points in 7 games in the postseason too, and that really showed what he could do, because he was out there with Stephen Halliday just flipping pucks to each other and making some pretty neat plays, and it shows, again, that's what they got him for, was to have that kind of experience. And finished 7th in the team and scoring 29 points in 62 games. But really, like you say, one of those guys that stepped his game up in those last few against Toronto and Cleveland. And Coach Dave Bell wanted to make sure he got him in at every single point when they needed him to. And when he got on the ice, he was always making things happen. And even if he wasn't scoring or racking the points, he was still out there. And again, much like a Boko Imama, contributing physical play and just making the safe, responsible play. And that's what ultimately Josh Currie was known to do. And of course, again, another great teammate in the dressing room and coming in, and really seemed to fit the philosophy that Coach Bell and the coaching staff had, and fit in really well here in Belleville. Again, one of those blue-collar guys that fans really took to, and similar to that of it, Boko Imama, he could play with just about anybody, which is absolutely imperative, and a couple guys you want to have in your lineup and in your dressing room, so that if you're going to play with Crookshank and Sokolov one game, or Imama and Betts the next, or whoever, you're always going to get a good game out of them.
Yeah, it was really versatile that way. Could pretty well play with anybody. And then again, we go back to just the way that he carried himself off the ice. This is a guy with almost 400 games in the American Hockey League, over 7 seasons, knows what it takes. Went through the early stages of having a young family while he's here in town this year, coming back to Canada for the first time since he played for Edmonton in 2018-19. Anytime he needed anything from Josh Currie, he was always more than happy to help out, whether that's an interview, whether that's a player appearance, et cetera, et cetera. He was always to the front of the line to help with stuff like that. And again, you can see that having guys like that really makes a difference in terms of how your team interacts with itself and the type of confidence that you can get from having that tight of a bond in the room.
Yeah, very valuable for sure. And Josh Currie, like you say, just a great community guy, great team guy, and of course a family man too now. So that's outstanding to have in your room and on the ice and on your bench and in your organization, really. And Coach Bell has said we need guys that can be good community guys and make fans for life, and that's exactly what Josh Currie did all season long. Admittedly, may not have been the most premier name on this Sens team, but certainly was valuable. No less valuable to the club, and he's fits in really well. And again, another one of those guys that you hope fits back into the lineup, because, like we say, he can play just about anywhere, and he's a key cog in terms of having a voice in the room.
Like you said earlier, too, not jump off the page offensive season in the regular season, but career bests, 6 points in 7 playoff games for him. If you didn't notice him much in the regular season, you certainly did over those 7 playoff games. The 31-year-old from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Uncle Kerr, Josh Currie, our next guest on Season 2, Episode 26 of the Belleville Sens podcast. First-year Senator, but far from a first-year player in the league. Not to date you or anything, but thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate it.
No, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
How was the season for you? You spent the last couple of years overseas. You come back to North America, back to Canada, and you made a pretty big impact for this club, at least from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, no, it was great. I had an awesome year. The organization was great to me. The coaching staff was fantastic, and just the guys that I got to play with this year and I got to meet. So just from that standpoint, I had an awesome year. I really enjoyed my time here, and I mean, yeah, I thought I had a good year personally, and as a team, I thought we did some great things. We did a lot of first year as an organization, which was nice. But yeah, overall, I'm going to look back on this year as it was a good success. I wish we would have done more in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, I think overall it was a blast, and I'm glad that I was able to play here.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of shares that sentiment, that it would have been nice to go further, and you were so close as well. It's frustrating to kind of go out the way that this group did with how hard you worked and how well you played, but a successful season nonetheless. And as we kind of talked about with Angus Crookshank, setting the building blocks, the foundation for what is still a relatively young franchise in this league to grow. There must be some pride in being a part of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, anytime you're able to be a part of a first for an organization, it's pretty special. It's something you don't take for granted. And yeah, I think Bellsy kind of said it there at the end of the last game there when the season was kind of over, is that we kind of set a standard here. I think of for future groups and future guys that come here, that this team wants to make the playoffs. It should make the playoffs, and it wants to go far in the playoffs. And I think that it's just cool to be a part of that group. That was the first team to get in the playoffs, win a round. And so yeah, no, I think we set a standard, and I think that's something to be proud about.
And you had a pretty big playoffs yourself over those 7 games, 3 goals, 3 assists as well. How nice was it to be able to contribute to come through at some of those big moments for this team?
Yeah, no, playoff hockey's kind of, everyone wants to play good in the playoffs. That's kind of that's the hockey that really, really matters at the end of the day. Obviously, you got to get there, but once you're there, it's kind of a different animal. But no, I mean, I have to tip my hat to my line mates. I got the chance to play with Stephen Halliday and Wyatt Bongiovanni, and those 2 guys were great. I think we had some good chemistry, so I got to tip my hat to them. They were easy to play with and made my job a little easier. But like I said, yeah, it's always nice to contribute.
I'll get a couple questions on those guys then. Both players who came in right basically near the end of the season. They played less than 20 games with the team before the playoffs started. And you'll play with different line mates all the time, but how do you kind of work in with guys like that so quickly and I guess find the quick success that you were able to as a group?
Yeah, no, sometimes you never know, right? Like when guys come in late, you don't know how it's going to go because, you weren't there with training camp and them. You weren't there, you didn't get to really see what they are as players. They're kind of just thrown into the fire right away. And especially when we were kind of in the thick of it trying to make the playoffs. But I mean, you got to give the scouting job and management a good job, tip their cap. They did a good job, scouting these guys and bringing them in, and they were just easy to play with, and they were also just great guys off the ice. I think if, you can communicate and get along with guys off the ice, I think it translates to on the ice product. And, those were 2 guys. I sat beside them actually in the room, so that made it a little easier. I could kind of talk to them and what we want to do here and what we want to do there, and I think that was kind of a big help for us.
Bonjo's played in the league for a few seasons, but Stephen Halliday is a pure rookie right out of college. You probably wouldn't have known it if you had just turned on the game and watched him play. What was it like from, I guess, the player's perspective to see a guy come in like that and just find some fast success? Yeah, no, it's impressive. This isn't an easy league to play in by any means. I mean, it's tough. There's a lot of changing roster moves. There's a lot of things that happens throughout a season. But I mean, he came in and he was fantastic. I think that just goes to show how good of a player he is and how good he can be when he gets a full season training camp kind of under his belt. But I think as the year went on there and the playoffs went on, I think guys on our team really started to realize how good he was. Mm-hmm. And he he led the team in points. He was second in the league, and he was doing some really good things. And so I think he's going to be a great player. And it was fun to be a part of and watch him and just get to play on his line. Take a couple more minutes here with Josh Currie. It's as a veteran player, like you're always kind of helping guys throughout the season and helping them to adjust for. Someone in your position at this time of year, right? Are you able to kind of pass along more, expertise, insight on how guys can kind of handle the off season and for some, like an Angus Crookshank dealing with a contract for the first time, are you able to pass some of that experience along this time of year?
You can a little bit. I mean, not too much. Everyone's different. Every contract negotiation year end, it's different. I mean, obviously, I've kind of been through it. I've done the whole restricted free agent, unrestricted free agent thing.
Sure.
So I mean, there's definitely a little piece of advice you can give guys, but at the end of the day, they kind of have to go through it on your own, and it's a cool learning experience. It's a cool experience to be a part of. But I definitely think it'll help you grow as a player and just as a man, being able to kind of navigate those situations and learn learn on your own. But I definitely, if guys want advice or anything, I'm always willing to give it. But it's a good experience. It's a fun time, and I just tell them to enjoy it. Like, this is, you had a good season. It's a lot of fun to kind of negotiate and do that stuff. It's a different part of hockey that people don't get to see, but it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, and for sure different for every player, obviously. Lastly, what's the summer look like for you? Obviously, the gym, etc. But what else will you get up to for the next few months?
Yeah, no, I'm just looking forward to going just back home with my wife and my daughter to spend our first full summer in our house together. So that's kind of that'll be exciting, just to be a family and go to the beach, do those family kind of things, go for walks. We're actually also expecting our second child in September, so that's kind of exciting news. Well, wife is pregnant again for another summer, so she's not too thrilled about that, but no, we're just looking forward to being a family and just kind of making memories and starting traditions and doing things like that this summer.
Well, a busy few months ahead then. Congratulations on the second new edition.
Yeah,
and have a great summer, man. It was awesome having you here. We appreciate you taking the time for all the media stuff and everything else. And we'll chat in a few months, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks to you and everyone. And thanks for a great year.
Josh Currie on the Belleville Sens podcast, you can hear what a nice guy Josh Currie is, and again, he touched on a lot of the things that we talked about prior to the interview as well. Just proof that this was an excellent pickup, and again, we can't say enough about what Josh Currie was able to do for this team in his first season here.
Yeah, very mature outlook, too, on the season from Josh Currie. And, again, that comes with being a 31-year-old veteran guy that's been around for a while, having played on the far coast here in the east side, played out in Europe. So he's been through it all. And that's typical of Josh Currie, just PEI nice for sure. And he's a Charlottetown native that it comes by it honestly, and he's a genuine guy. He knows he's going to be honest with you about where he stands, and as a player, him, Halliday, and Bon Giovanni, three guys that really worked well together. And again, sometimes in the AHL, it's interesting to see which kind of guys can be formed together on one line and see how they operate. And those three guys, for whatever reason, just seem like they clicked. But like I said, Currie can play anywhere in the lineup with anybody and be a contributor, which is outstanding.
Yeah, and he was, again, sets a new career high in AHL playoff points for himself. 3 goals, 3 assists over 7 games. His last trip to the Calder Cup playoffs was back in 2018-19 when he joined the Bakersfield Condors, had 4 points over 10 games. He had spent a chunk, I guess, of that last season with the Oilers in Edmonton. But you mentioned it, Brock, like Prince Edward Island kid, captains his hometown junior team, the Rocket, back in 2011 to 2013, goes to Gwinnett, which is in Georgia, Bakersfield, and Norfolk in the ECHL. Bakersfield moves up to the AHL. He, solidifies his spot in the system there, gets that taste in Edmonton, goes to Pittsburgh, and then over to Russia, and then here in Belleville. So, a really good season for Josh Currie, and looking forward to potentially seeing him back. And we've said that about all of the UFAs that we've talked about. We hope a lot of these guys are back, though we know they won't all be able to be here, unfortunately, and that's kind of what the next couple of months are going to be about for Ryan Bowness and his staff. Yeah,
there's only so many spaces and only so much money to hand out to guys, and it's difficult to because you wish you'd have all these guys back, but any level of hockey, whether it's pro, whether it's junior, like NHL, AHL, ECHL, what have you. Guys move on, guys head off to different pastures, and you got to replace them. And you always wonder how are you going to replace players like, Currie and whoever if they happen to go, but they always find a way. But, we hope Josh Currie will make a return back and fit into the lineup as well as he did again this year. And we hope he's enjoying his time at home out east with his wife and daughter. And, if you want to keep tabs on who's coming and who is going,
over the course of this offseason. Head over to BellevilleSens.com. Our offseason player tracker is live. We can tell you that 2 defensemen have signed elsewhere. Jacob Larson has signed with Rapperswil Jona in Switzerland, and Lassie Thompson with Malmo over in Sweden. Now, we'll take a break. When we come back, Ryan MacKinnon is our final guest on this episode, number 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Stay with us.
Don't miss 1 second of Belleville Senators action this season. The Belleville Sens Entertainment Network is the only place to hear live coverage of the Belleville Senators for all 72 games plus playoffs. Pre-game coverage begins 15 minutes before each game with David Foote, and the network is also home to the Belleville Sens podcast, the Belleville Senators Entertainment Network, presented by Deerhaven Farm and Garden. Tune in on the Belleville Sens app or BellevilleSens.com.
You are listening to episode 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast with myself, David Foote, and Brock Ormond. Glad to have you with us as we work through our exit interviews. Chatted earlier on with Boko Imama, and in the last segment, Josh Currie, and another East Coaster, and another big piece of the off-ice puzzle for the Belleville Sens. As our guest in this segment, Ryan MacKinnon, the defenseman slash forward slash utility guy slash whatever this team needed slash Player's Choice Award winner.
Mr. Everything.
Mr. Everything.
Yeah.
One of the many Mr. Everythings that Sens had on their roster this year. MacKinnon, again, another Prince Edward Islander like Josh Currie as well, and joins this team on an AHL deal ahead of the 2023-24 season, and things didn't really start the way I think that Ryan MacKinnon was expecting. He joins the team. There was some chatter about sending him to the ECHL just because he was basically down the depth chart on the defensive end of things for the Senators, and there was an opportunity to go to Allen and play games in the ECHL, but another guy with a young family and wife here in Belleville, and he chatted with management and said, you know what, it would be nice to play a lot, but I also understand the role of a player like myself in an organization like this that is very deep on the blue line, and I would prefer, and this is also paraphrasing, of course, but to stay here and to be part of this group and to just play whatever role is needed, for the coaching staff and for his teammates. And that's what he did. Ryan MacKinnon was here. He only dressed in 29 regular season games and 2 playoff games, but always around when the team needed him to be, always kind of stepped up in those moments. And, again, you get players like this that lead by example even though they're not in the lineup every day, and you get results like the Belleville Senators had this year.
Yeah, Ryan MacKinnon, consummate professional and a team guy, and, again, he wants to play in the AHL, and that's basically what he said to management, and wants to get that kind of experience and learn from other guys. And maybe with, like you say, Larson and Thompson being gone to Europe now, you could see Ryan MacKinnon getting a bigger role next season if he elects to return. So that's going to be crucial for him. But he played pretty well, all things considered. Again, it's tough not getting into the lineup every night when you're not skating. You're practicing every day basically, but it's much different, of course, getting into games versus practices where things are a lot more tightly structured and there's not as much room for variable or errors. So, Ryan MacKinnon, truly a good guy and a good defenseman. And like we said, we hope to see him in a bigger role wherever it may be, hopefully here with Belleville, but if not, somewhere else, because he certainly deserves it. And, positioning-wise, he was never out of place, and he always had a nice word for the guys on the bench, and that's why they named him Player's Choice.
Yeah, and it didn't matter if it was an extra defenseman that was needed. In some instances, an extra forward was needed, and Ryan MacKinnon had to get the lungs going a little bit more. But he was always there to fill whatever gap was needed. He played his role perfectly over the course of the season, and he joins us next, the 29-year-old from Summerside, PEI, Ryan MacKinnon, on episode 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. We're with defenseman / forward / whatever's needed guy. Ryan MacKinnon is with us. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me, Footy.
29 games in the lineup. Obviously, you were here all season. How did you feel about your first season here as a Belleville Senator?
It was great. Anytime you come into a dressing room, new team, new year, you never really know what to expect. But right from the day one at camp, you knew this was a special group and how close we were on and off the ice. And I thought personally, I controlled what I could control and made best of my opportunities. And it's unfortunate we came up short of our goal, but all in all, I'd say everyone in the dressing room thinks it's a successful season.
Yeah, it was certainly in terms of the grander scheme of this organization and what was accomplished this year. You played in 29 games out of the 72, got into a couple playoff games as well, and you talk about controlling what you can control. What was it kind of like to maybe not be playing as regularly as perhaps you would have liked, but still being a part of this group?
Yeah, it was a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of ups and downs in that, especially with the big club up top. There's so much turnover, and the rosters change basically every day, so you really do have to stay ready at all times. And, there was times this year where we had 5 defensemen, and there's also times where we had 9, so it's something that you just come to the rink and, like I said before, you control what you can, and I just treat it every day as if I was playing in the lineup and stuff. So that way, when my opportunity came, I didn't miss a beat and tried to help the team in any way I can. And like you said before too, some of those games were forwards as well. So no, I had fun doing it, and I thought I did well. So.
Yeah, what was the playoff experience like for you? That was still a first in your career in the AHL.
Yeah, I didn't realize there's actually quite a few guys in our dressing room that haven't played playoff games, and they have so much experience during the season. But once playoffs comes around, there was quite a few guys that didn't, and pretty fortunate to get those games. Those are meaningful games. Those are the games you'd rather play. I thought we had a great series against Toronto. Obviously, we're not big fans of them. They're not fans of us, and to get that job done at home, it was great. So it was definitely a great experience.
What was it like playing in Canada? You played in the States for basically your whole career outside of school and junior, obviously. But what was it like to play pro hockey in Ontario? It
was great. Playing in the States the last couple of years, you really forget how passionate fans are here in Canada. Going out to the grocery store, restaurants just around town, you get recognized a lot more, whereas to the States, you might not get recognized at all. But no, it was great, especially being from Canada, kind of the East Coast. It was a lot easier for friends and family to come visit. And then, anytime you can play for an organization that has so much passion and history like the Sens, it was a great experience.
We're chatting with defenseman Ryan MacKinnon. We've heard from a lot of guys about how close-knit this group was, and it can be kind of a cliche at the end of the season to go, yeah, we had a tight group, everyone got along, but something with this team definitely seems a little bit different. Did you feel that way?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you can sit with anybody on the bus, go out to eat with anybody, have breakfast with anybody, sit beside anybody in the dressing room. It just shows how close we really were, and it actually was a special group. I think it's my 6th, 7th year pro, and it was by far the closest dressing room. There's guys in there that invited everyone to their weddings, the fiance, the wives, everyone was so close. So on and off the ice, it was definitely a special group.
Do you think maybe being in Belleville, and I know it's not the shiniest market in the American Hockey League, but in a small town, kind of helps with that sort of camaraderie around the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially coming from a visitor side of things, you get into town and you obviously tough to find a lot of things to do, but living here, again, such a great group. We could just sit at somebody's house and have a great time, but we'd enjoy the county, enjoy the restaurants, and yeah, we just made the most of it, and it was great.
What does the summer look like for you? Obviously, training for whatever is next season. How will you kind of get away from the game for a little bit and then spend some time?
Yeah, so right now the focus is just getting back to the island, getting back to PEI. We have a newborn there, so he's 8 weeks yesterday. So my fiance and I are eager to get him back home, and that PEI water. So once we get settled in there and, get back to skating training. But for the time being, kind of show him off to some friends and family and stuff, and just enjoy the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, do all the stuff you couldn't do because you were here playing hockey for 8 months.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all the best with that. All the best with the young one in your off-season training and whatever comes next. It was fantastic having you here this season, and really appreciate all your time, man.
Great. Thanks, Woody.
Ryan MacKinnon wraps up our exit interview series for this week on episode 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. You may have heard a little bit of outside noise, some beeping, some grinding, some whirring, sneaking through the microphones. We are at the Jack Miller Broadcast and Media Center here at CAA Arena. It is the off-season, and the off-season improvements to the rink are beginning. So we do our show right through whatever else is happening here in the building. And, it's still a few months away, but looking forward to seeing what kind of big changes we can make in here this year. So if you've heard a little bit of added sound, and if you hear a little bit of added sound in our next segment, that's all it is. Just the upgrades and maintenance being done here at CAA Arena.
Yeah. Keeping the rink nice and ready for next season should be exciting.
It should be, and again, we're still not really sure what the roster will look like. We do know there's a handful of players back for next season, and some exciting prospects as well under contract, including Levi Marilainen, Stephen Halliday, Roby Yarvetti, Tyler Boucher, Oscar Pettersson, Zach Ostapchuk, Phil Daou will be back and healthy, Tyler Clevin, Donovan Sabrango, Thomas Hamara, Memorial Cup champion Jorian Donovan, who won the Mem Cup with Saginaw on the weekend. Big congratulations to Dono and his team out there in Saginaw. And then Jabril Toure, the defenseman, also under contract for next season. So when you look at things like Lassie Thompson and Jacob Larson heading overseas and making that early decision to do that, 5 defensemen in the pipeline that could potentially land in Belleville next season. Again, Clevin, Sabrango, Hamara, Donovan, Toure. So the blue line is it's pretty stacked back there for sure.
Yeah, and it's full of young guys, too, which is great to see. And not to say, like, veteran guys like MacKinnon aren't important to a team, which, of course, they are. But anytime you get those young guys like Hamara, got that taste at the end of this season. Donovan, that got the taste last season. And then you got Martin Paulo, or Martin Paulo's not under contract, but he's a guy that you couldn't hurt to have him back either. But Toure as well, who got some time in the preseason with the B-Sens. He's an interesting guy to watch. A big kid, too, from the Windsor Spitfires, and a guy that had a very interesting road to professional hockey. So I'll be very interested to see how he does next year, and curious to see how he fits in to a potential full AHL season.
Max Gannett and where did I just see it? Nicholas Montempallo, who we just mentioned, are both restricted free agents. So the Senators will have first crack at bringing those guys back next year. As I blow your eardrums with the music, we'll take a break. When we come back, we check back in on the Calder Cup playoffs. The East and West finals are underway, and it's the defending champions who are in control on both sides of the league. We'll explain when we come back to Season 2, Episode 26 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
Episode number 26 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. We're into our last segment of the week. Thanks again to our guests this week, Boko Imama, Josh Currie, and Ryan MacKinnon. And if you'd like to listen to those episodes again, or those interviews again, or if you'd like to see them, you're more of a visual type, you can head over to the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network on our Belleville Sens YouTube page, and all of those interviews are up there for your viewing pleasure. Closed captioned and everything. Our Garrett Harvey working hard to make those interviews as accessible as possible to all of our fans. So again, that's the Belleville Sens YouTube page, part of the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network, or of course, just tell your friends to subscribe to and download the Belleville Sens podcast and hear from your favorite players there. We'll take about 10 minutes perhaps and get into the Calder Cup playoffs and what has happened since the Belleville Senators went out. And what's happened is a lot of sweeps around the American Hockey League. In the division finals, 3 of the 4 series ended in sweeps. One of them went the distance to 5 games, and it was like a reverse sweep in that Milwaukee Grand Rapids series. The Admirals were down 2-0 to the Griffins, came back, won 3 in a row. Cleveland Monsters swept Syracuse 3-0. Hershey made light work of Hartford 3-0, and Coachella Valley had beaten Ontario 3-0. And we talked about those series on the last episode. Since then, the conference finals, Hershey and Cleveland in the East, Coachella and Milwaukee in the West, and both Hershey and Coachella with 3-0 leads in their best-of-7 series. And as things sit right now, Brock, it looks like we are headed towards a Calder Cup Finals rematch from last year, though anything can happen, and we know that Cleveland and Milwaukee in their respective series are excellent teams. But what do you make of the start to these conference finals?
Well, it proves that valuable experience is valuable experience, and most of those guys back from each of those 2 teams that are leading their respective series certainly have the advantage for sure, and doesn't always work out in a way that teams like to see, but in this case, Hershey and Coachella Valley certainly right in the mix there, and are not, unsurprisingly, to be quite frank, up 3-0. But that series between Hershey and Cleveland could have gone either way. First 2 games went to overtime. Hershey won them 5-4 in Game 1, 3-2 in Game 2. And even Cleveland came back to tie that Game 3, which was just last night, Tuesday night. And Hershey then completely ran away with it in the third period, up 6-2. They won that one. So it's again, one of those teams that just won a Calder Cup, one of the premier franchise in the American Hockey League, doing their job and doing it right. And but again, like we say, could have been a completely different scenario. Could be 2-1 for Cleveland right now, or maybe even 3-0 Cleveland, because the Monsters, goaltending-wise, were absolutely outstanding in that series against Belleville and again against Syracuse, with Jet Greaves and Malcolm Subban doing the job right. But now all of a sudden you're getting into a really sticky situation when you got a team like Hershey that just runs the table, and then you got Coachella Valley again. A couple close games, 2-1 and 3-1 in the first 2 for the Firebirds over Milwaukee, and then after that, Coachella, they won them at home too, and then Coachella Valley goes on the road and steals a big one, 5-2. So now for Milwaukee, it's pretty much you can't lose at this point. You have to win out, and coming back from 3-0 down to begin with is so hard, so difficult. And then you got to do it in a conference final situation, making it doubly difficult and extra challenging to have to fight back. But the Admirals have done it before. They did it twice before. So I have no doubt in my mind that the Admirals will chip away and at least give Coachella Valley some adversity, because the Firebirds really haven't faced a whole lot of it in this postseason.
Let's just look a little closer at some of the top performers. We'll go back to the Eastern Conference to start, and for the Hershey Bears, it's their big names really leading by example. You've got 5 points in 3 games from Hendrix Lapierre, who had a hat trick against the Belleville Senators here earlier this season. You've got 4 points in 3 games from Ethan Frank, who had a hat trick here against Belleville last season and was among the top rookies in the league. Chase Prisky is chipping in. Ivan Moroshnichenko is chipping in. And then you get into the veterans, Garrett Rowe, Joe Snively, Mike Vecchione, et cetera, et cetera. They are really putting together a formidable package, are those Hershey Bears, and we can't ignore it in the crease either, Brock. Hunter Shepard was the best goaltender by GAA in the regular season, followed closely by his partner Clay Stevenson, and that trend has continued right through the playoffs as well. All the talk that we had about Jet Greaves, you can't ignore Hunter Shepard and his 1.84 goals against in these playoffs, boy, does that ever make the job a lot easier for the guys in front of you, and he is a big reason why the Hershey Bears are up 3-0 in this series.
Yeah, goaltending is so crucial at this time of year. It's really crucial at any point of the year, but especially when you get into those winner-take-all situations, and Hunter Shepard was just brilliant this season, and Minnesota guy, steps in and again, splitting time with Clay Stevenson, and that's crucial to have both your goalies well rested. 27 out of 34 games won for Hunter Shepard to go along with 5 shutouts. And
crazy.
Of course, he was on that team last year as well and posted some pretty decent numbers. And when you get those spry numbers up on the board, it can be really hard to ignore. And for Coachella Valley, they figured it out last year against that Hershey team. That it's not easy. You're going to have to grind some games out and just get some greasy goals, and that's exactly what they did to push to 7. But the Bears, right from the net out, are going to be such a hard team to beat going down the stretch drive. And, of course, you got mentioned Mike Vecchione. He was a key piece to that team last year, an overtime winner in Game 1. And then Pierrick Dubé, another veteran guy, scores an overtime in Game 2. So it's those guys, those returning players that already know what it takes to win. And we heard that from Garrett Pilon all season. He was on that Bears team in 23 that won. And this year he brought that experience here to Belleville, and he said that you gotta keep your emotions in check because it can be an emotional time of year. And you guys, it's up and down. And when you find a way to get into that headspace where you can win, but you don't want to be too cocky or complacent, but you also can't get down and act like the world's ending when you're losing. You got to just keep your emotions level-headed, and as cliche as it is, you got to keep those emotions in check, because if you don't, then teams like Coachella Valley are going, and the Cleveland Monsters are going to take you over. And the Hershey Bears are a winning team for a reason, and once again, they are one step away from a Calder Cup final.
And leading the way for Cleveland, again, the usual suspects over the course of these playoffs, David Jiricek and Josh Dunn, who's had a really, really good postseason for the Monsters, each with 4 points in 3 games. Alex Whalen, who's had a good playoffs as well, 3 points in 3 games for the Cleveland Monsters, who have their work cut out for them. They trail the Hershey Bears 3-0 in the Eastern Conference Final, and game number 4 of that Eastern Conference Final goes on Thursday, June the 6th, so that is tomorrow as of recording time here at CAA Arena. It is Wednesday, June 5th in the morning time that we're putting this show together. So there will be changed results perhaps by the next time you listen, and certainly by the next time we have a show, we'll be able to either recap the conference finals and preview the Calder Cup final, or we'll have a lot to talk about because Milwaukee and Cleveland have had some pretty good stretches if those series are still continuing come into next week. On the flip side, in the West, Coachella Valley's being led by Andrew Podorowski. He's got a Calder Cup already under his belt with the Charlotte Checkers. 4 points over 3 games for him, and pretty rounded out scoring for these Coachella Valley Firebirds. Chris Dreger doesn't count because he's a goaltender, but outside of Dreger, there's only like 5 players who don't have a point for Coachella Valley in this series so far. And on the other side for Milwaukee, just not scoring a lot. They've only got 4 players who have scored goals over 3 games, and that's never going to get it done. So we'll keep an eye on both of those series over the course of this week and the weekend and into next week, and we'll be ready to update you when things, when we roll back around next week. And again, it's tough to see either of those teams coming all the way back, but similar to, like I said, in the Belleville-Cleveland series, I also don't expect either of those teams, Cleveland or Milwaukee, to get swept in 3 games, especially, when you pointed out, Brock, how close those first 3 games between Hershey and Cleveland really were.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you never say never, especially given what we saw from Cleveland. That's a team that's pesky, and they're not flashy by any means, but they get the job done. But just a thought on the Monsters, though. Trey Fix-Wolanski, 5 points now in 10 games. Quite frankly, that's not going to get it done for Cleveland because he was one of their key offensive guys that were keyed in on and, given the opportunity to run with the offense. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't been his type of playoff. And though he's still battling and still giving his teammates a chance to be successful, and Coachella Valley with their great balanced offense, that's going to be real tough to beat. And I'm looking forward to seeing if these two teams can finish it off. What the Firebirds, first of all, what the Bears have in store for an encore, and what the Firebirds have in store to try and maybe hit back at Hershey and steal away a victory in just their second year in the AHL.
Well, the schedules line up for the final 4 games, potentially, of those conference finals. Thursday, June 6th for game number 4, Saturday, June 8th for game number 5, Monday, June 10th for game number 6, and then Wednesday, June 12th, game number 7. And that's likely when our next episode will be. So again, you can watch those games on AHL TV if you've got the subscription, and if you're not watching, we'll recap you on all the action next week, along with our next 3 features in our exit interview series. So again, subscribe to the show, toss us a rating and a review, and make sure to join us next week for episode 27. With that, we'll say goodbye from the Jack Miller Press Box and Media Center here at CAA Arena for Brock Ormond, David Foote, thanking you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week on the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.